Good morning. My name is Peter Murphy Lewis, and I'm here representing LTC Heroes live by Experience Care. And this week, I'm with Intely at Sea. This episode and the episodes today are from Intely Care. And today I'm joined with Jackie Braxton. Jackie, tell me a little bit about you, where you're from, how long you've been in long-term care, and then I'll ask you some follow-up questions.
My name is Jackie Braxton. I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I've been a CNA for 30 plus years.
Your story I remember because you and I met yesterday at the first reception party on the cruise, and you had a smile, and I went up to you and I said, I need you on the podcast. And you told me you were excited to talk about your story. Just start off by telling me why long-term care has been so impactful for you in your life.
Well, first, my mother, she was a nurse. I have a sister that's a nurse, and we have daycare, so you got to have a little compassion, with what you do. And my mother woke me up one morning and took me to work with her, and started working at the age of 16 and been doing it ever since.
You must have some amazing stories, sad stories, funny stories. If there were one story that you were going to tell, leave your legacy of something that you've done amazing, whether it be during COVID or beforehand, you had some resident that you changed the quality of their life. What's one thing that you would want to be remembered for?
I remember I had someone when I was working at a rehab. Can I say the name?
Yeah. Don't say their last name.
Okay.
Say their first name.
McGee. No,
Okay.
the facility.
Okay.
And he came in as a motorcycle accident patient. Couldn't remember nobody's name. And I went in his room every day and told him, you're going to say my name when you start talking. And I told him my name every day. I didn't even have the assignment. And I went in the room every day. What's my name? And he just looked at me. And I could tell by his eyes, he knew who I was. I was off the day that he started talking, and he asked for me.
Oh, man.
He asked for me.
Jackie, it's 9:30. I'm not supposed to cry this early into the interviews. I don't know what this is supposed to be, a cruise. Well, I guess that's a moment to say thank Intely Care, because we wouldn't have met. There's over 400 or 500 of us on here who've been working with Intely Care, and I'm excited to hear their stories like yours. That's a great way to get started. I want to hear about the intangibles of long-term care. I want to know what it is about beyond the pay, the people. What are the things that you take home with you that make you want to stay in this for over 30 years?
Well, them not having people coming to see them, like you become their family. You got a lot of people that get put in long-term care and get forgotten about, and that's when I think a role can come into play with you, far as you just having a little more attention for these people, and just let them know like you didn't get forgotten. Somebody's here for you.
My first day of clinicals as a CNA, the gentleman I was shadowing, he was running around. It was 5 o'clock in the morning, and I followed him in, and I could tell that he was flustered that he had some people following him that day, because I think he thought that I was going to bail out on him. And he said to me, and I'm going to ask you if you have any good quotes from people who've trained you or people who've been around you. He said to me, Peter, long-term care is really easy if you care about humans. Now hurry up. Do you have any people who gave you some great quotes like that just stuck with you forever?
They always told me that if you didn't want to be in the business, don't do it. Because you really do need a heart. Like you need feeling. You need some kind of feeling, some kind of heart. And they always told me like, it's not for you if you come in and just want to do your job. You always got to do a little more, no matter what it is. No matter what it is, you have to do a little more.
Rebecca Love is the person who invited LTC Heroes to the Intely Care cruise, and she specifically said, Peter, I'm really worried that these frontline caregivers, the CNAs, the nurses, are not going to be remembered 20 years from now. They're going to write about this pandemic, and they're not going to remember the people who were there for over 2 years caring for them. Do you have any stories from COVID that if I asked you to take off your humble hat, you said, I did this, I worked 24 hours, or I didn't get to see a family member for this long? Do you have any stories from COVID that you think are important that our people need to be remembered for?
Well, I know for me, my building was a whole COVID building, and I had to ask my loved one, like, if he wanted to move out. You know, like I didn't want to jeopardize him. You know, I had to give him choice to do that, but I couldn't see my grandkids, you know, because I was too scared that I was going to pass it on to them. You know, you got to pray going in and you got to pray going home.
In terms of how work during COVID has changed you, is there anything that you learned about yourself from being a CNA in one of the most difficult times, at least in our century?
I would have been scared to do this interview. I would have been scared to do this interview. So I think I became a little more braver than what I used to be.
Amen.
Yeah.
And tell me, at what point, maybe you just realized it now, because sometimes we learn things after we say them out loud. Sometimes we process them beforehand. When did you realize that you were becoming the brave woman that you are today sitting in front of me?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
Did you realize it this morning when you said it out loud?
That could be it. Yeah. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Jackie, tell me a little bit about, in terms of advice, if you had a 16-year-old, you know, Jackie from Philadelphia who lives 2 blocks down the road from you, and she sees you every single day go out in scrubs, and she says, "Hey, I'm thinking about going into healthcare." And she says, "Jackie, should I go into long-term care?" What advice are you going to give to that 16-year-old Jackie today?
I would tell her to try all healthcare, not just long-term. You might want to do rehab. You might want to do hospice. Just take your education as far as you want to. You know, I decided to stay as a CNA because that was my compassion, taking care, helping more. But the more you learn, the more you want to do, go for it.
I'm going to take a brief pause just to thank some of our sponsors. And that wraps up what I hope to be. Want to connect with leaders in long-term care? Go to www.ltcheroes.com to join our community on Facebook and LinkedIn. Get exclusive access to marketing tips, SOPs, and insights from prominent voices in the industry. Only at ltcheroes.com.
I'm like,
all right, we're back on. Jackie, I want to ask you in terms of, I guess I want to ask you some rapid fire questions to get to know you as a human being. My first question has to do with a hypothetical billboard. If you could have one billboard on the outside of Philadelphia that said anything, what would it say and why?
it probably would say, "Enjoy life to its fullest," because of what we just went through, the pandemic. You know, life is too short. You got to enjoy. Take on the task that you want to take on and just enjoy.
Is there a particular quote or book or song that you most remember that is most important to you?
Well, I love all music, nothing like that.
I saw you dancing last night.
I'm just a free-hearted person.
I want to ask you about Intely Care, because when I showed up on the cruise 2 days ago, I knew that this was going to be the first time I was going to be around so many healthcare professionals. I got into long-term care right in the middle of COVID. So I didn't get to meet a lot of people like you have. You know, you got 3 decades under your belt. Why did you come to this community? Who were you looking to meet and become friends with?
I just actually wanted to just see what the company was really about. You know, like when I got hired with them, you know, I was going to a lot of different facilities, meeting a lot of people. So when they decided to have the cruise, I said, I just wanted to come to see who I could meet, you know, and what type of person they were and who I was working for, you know.
And my wife and I speak Spanish at home, and I was sitting on the bus ride with all the Intely Care professionals all over, and they were all having fun, and I could hear them talking when they didn't think I could listen. And I said to her in Spanish, I said, "These are people that I'd like to work with." Was that your impression?
Yeah, it was, because it was like, they was like, "Oh, I'm with the CEO of this person." I'm like, "Oh, okay," because you know you don't get to interact with CEOs and people of the higher board people, you know. And it was really like down to earth fun. They was out there dancing and just having a good time, and that's something that you don't see all the time, like in a facility. You know, you don't get to meet them kind of people.
Did you see the gentleman who signed you up with the clipboard yesterday was one of the co-founders?
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Now see,
he wasn't my assistant.
see that? Like
Yep.
you don't get to interact with that type of crowd all the time.
Mm.
And that was really nice. And that's what I came for. I was hoping, I was like, I want to see all, because I didn't even think it would be that many people here. But the more I got out to say, well, let me see what's going on with telecare, the more.
Jackie, I have a couple quotes that I want to read to you, and you give me your impression and tell me what they make you think of. One of them has to do with nursing, and one of them has to do with football. This one is one of my favorites. It's from Andy Rooney. It says, quote, "The best classroom in the world is at the feet of an elderly person." Tell me why you like working with our seniors, with elderly people.
Because they really depend on us. It's like you have a dementia person that might not remember their family member, but will remember you because they see you every day.
Mm.
You know, and then you might have a combative person that you might be the only one that they listen to.
Mm.
You know, so that's the impact that you have on that person.
Another one, and I'm going to paraphrase this, is from a football player, Ray Lewis, and he said that his football team pays him to work Monday through Saturday, but when he plays on Sunday, he plays for free. What's your Sunday in long-term care? What would you do for free? You're happy they pay you, but man, you enjoy it so much. It's a gift for you.
Well, I work every day, so it's like I'm just there at hand and foot for all of them.
Mm.
Hand and foot.
Jackie, as we start to sign off, I want to ask you. In terms of what excuse me, our frontline caregivers have done during COVID. What's important for you that remains in history, that we document in history of what we did during COVID?
Just don't forget us.
Mm.
Don't forget us. That's it. Can't forget the healthcare workers that was there for the long haul.
Yep.
And we're still here.
Jackie, thank you so much for joining me on LTC Heroes, and I look forward to seeing you tonight at the party and maybe dancing again.
You're welcome.
And that wraps up what I hope to be a fun